Folly's signature weapon is the Enkaus. This inky beam laser comes with innate corrosive damage, a high beam range, and infinite ammo when used right. So is it powerful or is it fodder? I'm TheKengineer, let's solve a practical problem. Enkaus comes with a bundle of features that make it a somewhat unique weapon. With innate corrosive, it is one of very few primaries able to deal corrosive alongside viral, toxin, gas, or electric with just ordinary modding. It has a base 60 magazine with conspicuously no additional ammo. Instead, it has infinite reloads with no pickups needed. Enkaus also has an alt fire for 15 ammo to coat enemies in ink, affecting an 8 meter radius zone and applying a token amount of damage on creating the zone. Enemies which are in the zone or enter it within 10 seconds become coated in ink, lasting itself for 10 seconds. Coating an enemy has two effects. Firstly, the coated enemies regenerate your ammo when hit by Enkaus, creating a net positive if shot for long enough and allowing you to fire indefinitely. Secondly, Enkaus makes non-VIP enemies vulnerable to instant death when they reach 35% health. What causes them to get to 35% or lower doesn't matter, but the instant death effect is only triggered by hitting the target with Enkaus. VIP targets like acolytes, demolishers and bosses will not be affected by this. This insta-kill manifests as a single hit of at least 6 tier critical hit, read with triple exclamation marks. It might be higher, the game doesn't have a means to show that. This critical hit is purely corrosive, deals all the remaining damage needed to kill the target, and with a forced corrosive proc. All modding and attempts to change that proc, such as to end on a very strong gas or blast proc, are fruitless. Not even the elemental god that is Lavos can override this corrosive finale. Being that we have no control over the damage type, that the hit is guaranteed to be lethal, and all but ignores our modding, it being a super duper red crit is only there to make it very visible to us. Enkaus comes with an innate 18% critical chance, meaning that seeing even a basic red crit is unlikely, let alone 6th tier. As it is corrosive damage, this causes the target to melt away over a couple seconds, dissolved by the ink. Functionally then, this somewhat makes the Enkaus deal around 53% more damage than it appears, for it only has to get to that 35% health threshold on inked enemies. However, it doesn't actually do that additional damage, so any additional features related to that damage, like AoE status effects, or any damage dealt by other weapons and allies, is entirely unbuffed. One final feature of the ink is Folly exclusive, making coated enemies suffer the same slowing and orb generating effects of her passive, as if inked by her abilities. Beyond these curious unique features, it is otherwise a status focused beam weapon. This means we can compare it pretty directly to another status focused beam weapon, the Galaxian Vandal. Both are MR12, with Enkaus requiring quest progression and sufficient setup to defeat Folly's hunt, while Galaxian Vandal just requires trading with Barrow or another player. Galaxian Vandal comes with a higher magazine, faster reload, higher critical damage, higher status chance, and higher damage per hit, all of it cold. In exchange, it has a slightly lower critical chance and 8 meter lower beam range. Thanks to the alt fire of the Enkaus, effectively being a 50-ish% DPS buff, the Enkaus is the stronger of the two weapons here, even if not by much. However, once you climb to the Tenet Galaxian, almost every stat favours the Tenet weapon, including its ability to chain damage to nearby targets. As one would hopefully expect, a basic tier signature weapon is fit for its mastery rank, but doesn't outcompete an adversary weapon in the same class. Now, the Enkaus being a precision beam weapon means we have a special consideration when it comes to modding. Single beams, like the Enkaus, double dip multishot in a special way. You see, most weapons in Warframe use multishot to fire additional shots per shot. If you have 2 multishot, then each shot magically creates a second independent shot. It'll roll crits and status independently, and it'll apply damage independently. You get twice the DPS, twice the status output, twice the status damage output. It's all linear. Single beam weapons perform differently. Rather than generating additional beams within the beam, the single beam becomes enhanced by multishot. Its damage is increased and its status chance is increased, both in line with multishot. However, this act of combining the stats means that any damaging status effects, which are rolled more often, are now basing their damage on a higher individual hit rather than being spread across a bunch of smaller hits. This is easier to imagine if you think of it with impossibly high multishot. A normal weapon with 100 multishot would fire 100 shots per shot. Each shot would deal normal damage. If you had a 10% chance of a heat proc, you'd expect 10 of these multi-shot hits to deal a heat proc, so you get 10 heat procs, each based on that normal damage. 10 normal procs. For the beam, 100 multi-shot would mean a single hit of 100 times the normal damage and 100 times the normal status chance. It'd deliver 10 heat procs, each of them based on 100 times the normal damage, giving a set of procs with 100 times the DPS compared to the normal weapon. The effect of multi-shot on status damage is linear on normal weapons, but squared on single beams. With this in mind, you want to mod for multi-shot where reasonably possible on that type of weapon. If you're relatively new to Warframe and have not yet unlocked arbitrations, your modding options will be limited. Split chamber and vigilante armaments are the early game method of obtaining multi-shot, bringing the weapon to 2.5. This means status damage output is 6.25 times what it would be without those two mods, a hefty increase. While vigilante armaments is relatively weak, only plus 60% multi-shot, it's still increasing overall status damage by 73%, before considering the set effect for better crits. Beyond that, I've opted for a simple heat viral modding, plus vial acceleration for significantly higher fire rate. As you progress though, you can upgrade this a lot. There are the obvious choices, like swapping Infected Clip for Malignant Force when you get it from a Corrupted 4, or swapping Split Chamber for Galvanized Chamber when you can handle arbitrations. Beyond that though, is a little more specialization. This full send build swaps from Viral Heat to Toxin Blast. Blast causes AoE damage from status, giving the Enkaus a mild multi-hit effect. Toxin on the other hand serves a combo purpose of more status damage, another status effect for Galvanized Aptitude to trigger from, and to trigger Primary Blight. Primary Blight has two effects, more multi-shot and more critical damage, for the modest cost of delivering Toxin procs. Enkaus can deliver that with ease with a single Malignant Force, fully activating the Arcane's effect. With this setup, we end up with 115.2% status chance, 4.02 multi-shot, and up to 585% damage bonus between Serration and Galvanized Aptitude. That critical damage bonus on Primary Blight doesn't need to go to waste neither. While the Enkaus only has a 16% critical chance, not really worth modding for, we can bypass normal modding. The good old Arcane Avenger will boost your critical chance by a flat 45% after taking damage, nearly quadrupling your critical chance. This increases the damage of an unmodded Enkaus by only 32%, but with Primary Blight's effect we get a 99% increase in damage. Aim for the head, and this goes higher again thanks to critical headshots. Other sources of flat crits work too, such as Adarza Kavats or Harrow's Covenant. With this setup, Avenger, and full stacks on mods and arcanes, Enkaus has a direct DPS of 122,000 body shot, or 684,000 on headshot. Factoring a lethal hit at 35% health, that's functionally 1 million DPS on headshots before considering the effects of status like Corrosive. It's because of this potential DPS that I've opted for an AoE status. For all the corrosive heat viral devastation you may be able to generate, that's limited to the shot target only. If they already die in a second, the status damage is basically wasted. For AoE status, your options are Electric, Blast, and Gas. Electric means you can use neither Primary Blight nor Primary Frostbite, cutting off a chunk of multi-shot. It also delays its AoE for everything but the first tick, as all electric proc damage combines into a single hit once per second, so you're effectively waiting as long as heat. Gas procs are limited to 10 procs, which, on a weapon with over 100 status per second, is simply not enough. Gas Cold will not deliver the results you deserve. Blast is kinda limited to 10 procs, except at the 10th proc it immediately explodes, delivering 10 times as much damage to the surrounding enemies. Even with Blast not using element bonuses, only being a portion of the status delivered, and having the lowest status multiplier of 0.3 times, the resulting effect with a full send setup is lethal to adjacent targets with the same or lower effective hit points. It doesn't matter how quickly you kill with Blast, it'll explode so long as you hit 10 procs or lethal, giving a more consistent result. If you're not facing clustered enemies, then a return to Heat Viral is warranted. If the enemies you're facing are also viral immune or status resistant, maybe consider not using the Enkaus at that point. As an alternative approach, you can swap out Vial Acceleration and Malignant Force for Prime Shred and Infected Clip. This retains the Toxin Blast approach, but trades a lower status chance and fire rate for a much higher punch through and a heavier toxin weighting. Switch up as best suits your mission. The Enkaus isn't an overwhelmingly powerful weapon. It's an MR12 signature weapon, but far from a useless one. When you empower its nature, you will get results worthy of investment for the tier you get it at. But if you want more of that power, existing higher tier beams from the Tentaclaxion to Torrid Incarnon will serve you better. Usually, I'd say if you find these videos helpful, consider supporting on Patreon. I respect that's not an option for everyone. So this time, if you found this video helpful, share it. Drop the link in a Discord, on Blue Sky, Facebook, or any other place with people it can help. This lets me segue into saying, and as always, spread ink, spread links, and fight well, Tenno.